Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. On today's show, we've got end of the year Minnesota Vikings awards, and it could get controversial.
Hi, I am Arif Hasan of Pro Football Network. All I know is controversial, so I'm ready for this.
Luke Braun and Ron Johnson join as the show goes on. It's the Minnesota Football Party.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Pro Football Network's Arif Hasan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
Welcome into the Minnesota Football Party today. I'm Sam Ekstrom, at Sam Ekstrom on Twitter. Check me out there. And Arif Hasan, Pro Football Network. He's at Arif Hasan NFL. Go find his excellent work at PFN. Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings will join the show in progress, and Ron Johnson of the Ron Johnson Show joins as well. Today, we've got a jam-packed show. It's Border Battle Week. Vikings, Packers. What are the keys to victory? And I don't know if anyone saw this. Locked On Packers host Peter Bukowski had a bit of a diatribe calling the Minnesota Vikings frauds. We're not here to destroy the person Peter is. We are just going to explore whether there's a way to destroy his argument. So we'll get into that. We've also got end of the year Minnesota Vikings awards as we pivot into 2023. But you can find us on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on Amazon Fire and Roku. You can subscribe on YouTube. Please subscribe on YouTube. Help us get to 4,000 subscribers before New Year's Eve. Right now, we're at 3,970 and change. So help us out there, and we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Arif Hasan, what's going on today?
Hey, not much. I'm still in Vermont. I hope that that's okay with you. Still visiting my brother. I love these extended stays, man.
That's awesome. I love that you get to spend some time with family around the holidays. The only thing I know about Vermont is that I would not know like the shape of the state. Like if you showed me just a random blob, I wouldn't know if it was Vermont or a different I don't know
It's
how
like
to
a right
draw
angle
Vermont.
triangle, and the right angle is on the left side, looking at the map, in the normal orientation, and then New Hampshire is its like opposite, where they just kind of flip it and just fit it right onto there. So.
Excellent. Capital
Yeah.
Montpelier.
Yeah. No, and
Yes.
apparently no one cares about that.
Yes.
So there you go. Yeah, biggest. I'm in the biggest city in Vermont, in Burlington, but yeah,
Wonderful.
capital's Montpelier.
Wonderful.
Look at
Vikings
you.
play the Packers this week, Arif, on New Year's Day, 3:25, CBS, Jim Nantz, Tony Romo. Let's start here. How did the Vikings win? What do the Vikings have to do to beat this? I don't know if red hot is the right word, but surging Green Bay Packers team.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't know that like surging makes a ton of sense just because you know who they want, right? So they've got a 3-game win streak. I think that that's like fair to point out, but you know they beat the Bears on the way, they beat the Baker Mayfield Rams on the way, they beat a Miami Dolphins team where for 3/4 of the game the opposing quarterback was concussed and threw 3 picks that were inexplicable, that are uncharacteristic of Tagovailoa, and were not the product of like good defensive play, right? It's difficult for me to say that these wins are a feature of the Packers playing well. That said, you know, there's increased chemistry on that defense. I've long said that that defense has been very talented and poorly coordinated, seems to be a little bit better. That offense has a little bit more chemistry with the receivers. So I get where a lot of this hype is coming from. I understand why Vegas has the Packers as 3-point favorites, but I think the win here, obviously it's on the road, it's going to be a little bit different, but the win here, I think, comes from doing what the Vikings have been doing all season, making sure that they can run their offense through Justin Jefferson, making the continued adjustments on defense that they've been making. Now, the biggest issue, the biggest concern I have is that the Vikings defense has gotten a lot better over the past 6 quarters. We talked about it in the last episode about how much they blitz more often, how much more man coverage that they're using, how they're using their personnel that way. The problem is that Aaron Rodgers is fairly good against the blitz, right? And so if your adjustment is to bring more pressure, to bring more rushers into the lanes, and the quarterback you're up against is particularly good against that, that does present a concern. So I think that is probably the area that I'm most, worried about, how that defense is going to perform. But just generally speaking, I like the improved defensive performance. I like the increased pressure rate coming from Danielle Hunter in the second half of the season. I like the Vikings in this game. I think them playing their normal game is the best avenue they have to win.
Yeah, tough to know Aaron Rodgers' numbers against pressure this year, whether they are representative of a decline for him or maybe just a smaller sample size, because I think he's been great against it in his career, and that holds a lot of weight. This year, he has not been pressured very much. That offensive line, without Bakhtiari for chunks, has really kept him upright. He's like fourth fewest, drop back pressure this year, like 26%. Kirk Cousins is 37 for reference. But Aaron Rodgers, when pressured, 23rd in passer rating. So not that great. I think it's like 4 touchdowns, 3 picks. Vikings have blitzed 22 times and 12 times in the last 2 games, respectively. A huge increase on what they'd done before. Offensively, you mentioned working the ball downfield to Justin Jefferson. Weather permitting, I think that's got to be the play. The safeties for Green Bay, and I know that safety grades are a little bit dubious on Pro Football Focus because it's that final line of defense. So much has to happen in front of them. But Darnell Savage and Adrian Amos have had bad seasons, at least from a PFF perspective. And I think the Vikings already showed an ability to get the ball to Jefferson against them in week 1. However, it's a different Green Bay Packers team, Arif. 16 weeks between games. Where do you think Green Bay is different from week 1?
Like I said, I think that defense is a little bit more cohesive. It's a little bit more coherent, I guess. I would say that they're doing a much better job of making sure that there's communication happening at the back end. Replacing Darnell Savage at safety has been actually kind of big for them. Getting more play out of Quay Walker has been big for them. But, primarily, I mean, they're an offensive team. They run through Aaron Rodgers, and their ability to maintain that high level of communication that he used to have with players like Devontae Adams or Donald Driver or Greg Jennings, their ability to maintain that took a step back this year, but it's coming back. A couple episodes ago, we talked about a party foul, about hand signals and the way, that he messed up that communication with Christian Watson. That's fair. And those miscommunications will continue happening until the end of the season, but they are becoming less and less frequent. Right. And, we're seeing Watson come online, they're using his incredible athleticism as a means of, getting over the top. That's kind of where most of Green Bay's kind of change in fortune, change in circumstances coming from, is that their offense has become a little bit more consistent, and it's fitting kind of what we expect out of an Aaron Rodgers offense.
Christian Watson, ice cold the last 2 weeks, didn't even score multiple touchdowns in either game. So he's coming back to earth. I guess you called it. I guess you said this wasn't going to be sustainable. You were right, Arif. Stunning.
Look, I'm just saying.
Unbelievable. By the way, Aaron Rodgers didn't practice yesterday. Right thumb, which we knew about, and knee issues. I think he'll play. I think when you're Aaron Rodgers, you take Wednesdays off when you have a little knee soreness. But it's worth noting. I mean, we've seen Aaron Rodgers over the years play through knee stuff.
Oh, and over the past 2 years, we've seen him play through not practicing, just kind of generally. So I'm not that. I guess I am more concerned, right, from a Vikings perspective. I wouldn't be changing my plans if I were them.
Correct. And I think that if indeed it is going to be 32 and a wintry mix, that's kind of where I worry most about Rodgers. I think he's an elements guy. Cousins, I don't really know. Not enough sample size. Buffalo was a great example. And we didn't get to see him in Green Bay last year. That was a big storyline. Like, how will Cousins, with the season on the line, handle a tough environment in tough conditions? And we didn't get to see that. It was the Sean Mannion disaster. So this year, first time Kirk Cousins has played in Green Bay since 2020, where the Vikings won. They won in Green Bay. 2018, Cousins tied in Green Bay, if you remember that crazy game. So
pretty fun.
He does have a history in Lambeau Field of doing some good things. Let me transition to this. Peter Bukowski, Locked On Packers host. I think we've had him on the show. We like Peter Bukowski. Peter Bukowski is a phenomenal podcaster. And he is a polarizing follow on Twitter, and he is often polarizing on his show. And he leans into the Packers-Vikings rivalry. And if you saw his rant that he posted in full on Twitter, he calls out the Vikings as being frauds. He's not the only person to do this. He's not the last person who will do this season. But he lays out in excruciating detail all of the analytics and all of the stats that point to the Vikings being fraudulent. He points to very little else. He relies heavily on the numbers. And if you want to go, find the rant, you can find it on his Twitter account. And I would also recommend listening to Locked On Packers because I think he does a great job breaking down his team. And if you want to, get enraged, you can watch the Vikings bit. But my question to you, Arif, is, okay, he points to the stats and you can't argue with that. He's got him in his holster. He's got 10, 12 stats, expected to win loss, DVOA, yards per play. He points to all of these stats that are factual about why the Vikings are fraudulent. So how do we talk to a grinchy person whose heart is 3 sizes too small? How do we tell someone like Peter Bukowski, no, my favorite team is actually good? How do you do that without falling back on, well, they have heart or they have grit? Because that's most of what the comments are on the video. There's a lot of comments.
Yeah.
Most people just say, hey, look at the record, buddy. Well, let's go a step further. How do you form a rebuttal against Peter Bukowski in it's a fairly airtight analytics argument? What do we tell him if you want to make the Vikings actually look good?
Yeah, well, so he fundamentally makes 2 arguments here, right? That the Vikings are not as good as the record by a substantial margin, right? And that the Packers, by the same metrics, are a better team than the Vikings, which I think that one is actually a much more difficult argument to make. One I don't want to address as much just because I don't think the numbers are there to back up Bukowski, and so it's not that interesting. So with regards to kind of, obviously this is an argument I've been making all season, right? I'm arguing against basically my fundamental premise, right? That the Vikings are not as good as their record. And I think that that's okay, right? A lot of teams aren't as good as the record. Some of the teams that we celebrate the most are frauds by the same metric, but that's not the argument that Bukowski is making. He's making the argument that they're just not going to be as good for the rest of the season and the postseason. I think one thing that people who make this argument need to do is to have an accounting for necessarily why this is happening for the Vikings thus far this season. If it is just variance, if it is just luck, that could be the case, but it does seem like somewhat of a weak case to make. And there needs to be some accounting for as to why variance is moving things in one direction or the other. I think another thing that Luke Braun tried to do that I got into an argument with him that is still, I think, fundamentally sound from some perspectives is to take a look at how these games break down and what games are characterized by that kind of luck, right? Whether or not high leverage plays in particular situations exceed that of other lucky teams for the Vikings. And I think that while you can point to stuff like, a fumble recovery on special teams, you can point to stuff like a 61-yard field goal. Hey, fair enough. You also can point to stuff like backdoor covers, like the Bears game. You can also point to stuff where the Vikings actually overcame bad luck, like the Indianapolis Colts game, right? Those are kind of important contextual factors. If you take a look at it from a win probability perspective, and this is the fundamental argument behind point differential, right? The underlying argument is that these games are coin flips, and if they are coin flips, then we should treat them as such when predicting them going forward. That's what I've done in the past. Well, if we just take a look at the games where in the last 4 or 5 minutes, the Vikings were within 40 to 60% win probability, that number of games shrinks to about 5, maybe 4. It's not as many close, there's an 11-0, right? There are 11 close games. It's not as many close games where the Vikings were actually in coin flip scenarios. And that I think matters more because if you've got these backdoor covers, if you've got these close games that become close games because of some decision someone made to go for 2 points instead of an extra point, to allow a touchdown in garbage time, those things aren't coin flips in a lot of the same way. So I think that that's an argument that you would be able to make in order to kind of buttress yourself against what, Bukowski is saying. I think also it's important to know, he mentions, that all of these analytics come together to say something meaningful. Well, I think that we should point to the industry experts in using numbers and data, crunching them to produce results. And that's Vegas, right? The casinos are very good at determining, who's a good team, who's not a good team. No one beats Vegas in the long run, right? That's the whole point. Well, and this is something that I think that he'd be partial to because the Packers are currently favored, right, against the Vikings.
Yeah.
The problem is The Vikings, if you just take a look at the point spread and who is favored, the Vikings are 11-4, right? If you just take a look at the number of games that they're favored versus the number of games that they're underdogs at the closing line, they're 11-4, right? So there is some underlying data that you need to take into account that is not being taken into account by things like point differential, by game script, by DVOA, which, by the way, I love DVOA. It is a fantastic tool. It does a really great job. It's one of the only opponent-adjusted metrics out there, so it has its place within the industry. I will say it has been outstripped by stuff like EPA per play. The whole point of DVOA was that it would combine something like success rate and with explosive plays, and EPA per play is a much more cogent way to do it. And I'm sorry to tell you, Peter, no matter what split you use, Cousins exceeds Rodgers in EPA per play, and that is the most stable portion of EPA per play, right? If you take a look at defensive EPA, that is unstable. If you take a look at quarterback EPA, that is extremely stable, especially if you include completion percentage over expected. If you take a look at it over the course of the season, Cousins is better than Rodgers. If you take a look at it over the course of the last 6 weeks, Cousins is better than Rodgers. If you take a look at it over the past 3 weeks, where Rodgers is on a winning streak, Cousins is better than Rodgers because Cousins has put together some of his best games ever, not just the season, but in a Vikings uniform over the past 3 weeks. Hey, what's going on, Luke?
Luke Braun joins us as well. We're talking Peter Bukowski.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Arif makes.
Did you see the
Go ahead.
crossover that came out today?
Not the crossover.
No.
We're promoting it though. Yeah. No, he mentioned
that.
Boy.
He mentioned that he and you had a bit of a discussion, a bit of a talk, a chat.
Tiff.
We had a conversation.
I mean, that's a phenomenal tease. I think we'll need to get just an excerpt, Luke, of what went down there. Arif just made it very convincing. My question was, how do you refute someone like Peter Bukowski, who brings the stats, he brings the underlying analytics, and I think we know most of them to be true in some way. How do you refute that? How do you come back at him and say, no, the Vikings are actually good? And Arif makes a very good analytics rebuttal. I would say my rebuttal from more of a garden variety stats perspective, just look at total offense and passing offense. Every single team that's won the Super Bowl since the Peyton Manning Broncos has had a top 8 scoring offense, a top 8 passing offense, with one exception. The Eagles were top 8 total, but they weren't just outside the top 8 in passing. But for the most part, you got to be in the top quartile of the NFL in scoring and passing. Vikings are 7th in scoring. They're 6th in passing. You don't win Super Bowls with your defense unless it's like every 15 years. Like every 15 years, we have a team that does that, and that's why we can remember them. Oh, the 85 Bears, the 2000 Ravens, the 2015 Broncos. Okay, so it can happen.
The 2022 49ers.
The 2022
Oh, God.
49ers. Oh, you're probably right. But
It's a good defense.
passing offense fuels
that.
success in so many ways.
It's an all right future.
And the Vikings have, I don't know, the best passing offense tool in the NFL right now in Justin Jefferson. And I think that the defense is absolutely a problem. It's absolutely a problem for the Vikings. But it doesn't need to be top 10. It just needs to be not terrible. And they have been terrible this year, and they have been not terrible this year. If they can channel the not terrible version in the playoffs, I think they have a fighting chance. Luke, give us a sample of the back and forth with Bukowski, and people can go listen to the whole show.
Yes. We got, so on a Locked On podcast, usually we're supposed to get to an ad every 10 minutes. We did not get to our first one until 20 in. And we were like, oh God, we have to talk about the rest of the stuff in the show.
Oh, yeah.
It was great. It's one of my favorite
fantastic.
shows I've done.
I'm sure Built Bar and Manscaped understand. I'm sure that they.
yeah.
I'm going to
My
report you for your
apologies
poor
to
formatics.
Audible.
Ross Jackson's going to
Yeah.
get an earful.
Oh yeah, Ross is gonna get in my face. No, so his main point was basically like EPA, yards per play, DVOA, these total metrics that suggest that the Vikings are closer to average. And I pressed him on like, okay, how many wins do you think the Vikings should have? And his answer was 7 to 9. He thinks the Vikings should be around a 500 team. Which is funny because if they had like 8 or 9 wins, they'd still be leading the division. But
You said that, right?
I didn't.
Always think of the
I
good
blew it.
rebuttals after the fact, right?
Wow.
That's
Wow.
that is the one I thought of like an hour later. It's like,
Yeah.
But my main retort was, okay, Well, first off, they're a way different team than they were in the first 6 weeks, and that sample includes some things that I don't think like the first 6 weeks are particularly representative of the Vikings. I think they have things like the Dallas game in them. They have that kind of stinker in them. But that's also like a huge outlier, right? So I was like, hey, do you believe that outliers probably shouldn't be seen as like representative of the entire sample? Then why are we doing this thing that overreacts so much to the Cowboys game too? And there's kind of all these ways if you take a total metric that takes all of the entire season, you can kind of say, okay, who are the Vikings really? What game are the Vikings really? You could argue they're the Colts game, or are they the Bills game, or are they the Commanders game, or are they the Lions game? Like, who are they really? And I think that might be a more interesting way to truly assess who the Vikings are and try to understand who they are, but also that there are things that they do on the margins that they've done consistently all year that help a lot in these close game scenarios, like manage the clock such that the other team very rarely gets a quality opportunity to score and beat them. In fact, there's only been one situation in all of these close games where the other team has had an opportunity to score and beat them instead of score and tie. And that was against the Bears, where they had like a minute and a half and I think one timeout with, or no, that was to tie. They were down 7.
Yeah.
There was one, the Jets. The Jets were the ones that the Vikings were up 5 and they had a chance to get a touchdown and actually win, ended in an interception. The rest of them were, 25 seconds, no timeouts. You're just barely trying to get a field goal to tie. And those situations have, like, the Vikings have been really good at setting themselves up to have the high ground in those situations. This doesn't guarantee a win, but it certainly has been an advantage. And in situations where the clock matters, they seem to be doing better. Justin Jefferson is, like, I think the second best receiver against man coverage in separation. I thought it was a Matt Harmon stat I saw or something. Like, he's very good against man coverage. Well, what do you see in third down situations, in fourth quarter situations more often? You see more cover 1. That's what defenses like to do. They keep it simple and they go for that. So there's that also to take into account. And I think when the main point that somebody is sticking to is just the total metrics, then I think there's a lot of other stuff you can kind of ask, okay, well then why do you think that is, right? Okay, their record does not match their total metrics. We all want to know why, right? I think there's answers to that. And that will those answers continue? Do they help us predict? I don't know. The clock management stuff isn't part of those metrics because it doesn't tend to be that helpful in terms of predicting. If you're trying to figure out betting market stuff and all that stuff, we're going a different way than that. But if we're just trying to figure out, okay, why have the Vikings won more games than like their EPA suggests? I think the answers to that question are like really interesting. And I think with Peter, his answer to that is, well, they've gotten lucky. That's missing quite a bit.
Go check out Locked On Vikings, Locked On Packers crossover. Luke Braun, Peter Bukowski. We're going to get Ron Johnson's take on this after I tell you about Bet Online, which brings you today's show. Bet Online is your top source for sports betting info. As we talk about the betting markets, the Vikings are underdogs in Green Bay. No surprise there. I guess they are 3.5-point dogs, 47.5 the over-under in about a 35-degree Lambeau Field on Sunday afternoon. Get that line and all the lines from all the games, bowl season and NFL. Hey, the final line on Gophers today, taken on Syracuse, -9.5 for Minnesota in the Pinstripe Bowl. You can get all of that at Bet Online on your mobile device as well. It's Bet Online. It's where the game starts. He hosts the Ron Johnson Show. He's on Twitter at 3Ron Johnson. He joins us now as he does every Thursday. Ron, let me just dive right in. I don't know if you saw this viral video on Twitter. Locked On Packers host Peter Bukowski. We know him, we love him. But he posted a long video declaring the Vikings to be frauds ahead of the Vikings-Packers game. He posts a lot of stats about why that's the case. And we are offering our individual rebuttal for why the Vikings aren't frauds. Would you like to weigh in on that, Ron?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to say Luke Braun and Peter Bukowski, how you say it?
Bukowski. We've had him on the show, by the way.
I know.
We've had him on your show, yeah.
I know. And I'm looking forward to having him back because the Packers are going to have a short off season, so he's going to need something to do because there's nothing to talk about when your season ends in January. So we welcome you onto the Playoff Vikings podcast. But this is what I'll say, honestly, and no shade at Peter, but that's a metric of a person who's never really put blood, sweat, and tears into the sport. With all sports, there has to be some form of, and this is not luck. Like David Tyree was on our show, one of the best catches in NFL history. Was it luck? Yeah, but was there skill involved? Hell yeah. There's no way you don't have the skill and the ability to catch a ball and be able to pin it to your helmet while another guy is pulling it from you. And David Tyree said it. He said his catch was the best. He said Justin Jefferson next, and then Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham's one-handed catch. Luck? Hell yeah. It has to be the perfect ball, the perfect spot, the perfect, like, hit your hands. Like, if it hits here, you don't catch it, but it has to hit the perfect spot for you to grip it and catch it. But then there's skill involved in that. The way the Vikings are winning, there's skill involved in that. So you have to have the skills and the abilities to do what they're doing. And he's like, oh, data. Well, I love, I forgot the rapper. Little Dicky. Where he goes off when he's in London and he's like, data? Is it data? Is it data? I don't know. Is it data? He wants data or data? I don't know. But here I'll give him some data and data. In the fourth quarter, Kirk Cousins is 110 for 168, 65% completions. His 1,283 yards are first. His 12 touchdowns are first. His 3 interceptions are low. His 13 sacks are the third most. So it's not like a clean pocket where they're like, oh, Kirk Cousins needs a clean pocket to be great. No, he's getting hit the third most amount of times. He's getting pressured the most. 59 first downs, tied for second. 104 passer rating, fifth. But let's drill it all the way down. Let's go, because he wants some data or some data. Here's some data for you. Let's go even drill it down. Fourth quarter, third down. Fourth quarter, money down. 66 plays. 5.2 yards per play. So every 2 plays they're getting a first down. We've already talked about Kevin O'Connell's first and second down offense. 29 first downs. That's tied for second. His 8 touchdowns first. That's on third down, people. On third down, Kirk Cousins is putting the ball in the end zone. 49 passes, second most. 16 rushes, 15th least. So on third down, what does that mean? The 49 passes, the 16 rushes, you know they have to pass. So they're just beating people up. They're literally saying it's 3rd and 7. You know we're going to pass, and we're still beating you. You know I have to throw the ball, and I'm still beating you. Kevin O'Connell's offense is still beating you. And if I recall, the Packers lost to the Vikings. So was that luck? Or did they just beat them up? Like, people like that, I get it. They have a job to do. They love their Packers. Everybody, Channing Crowder got on ESPN. We see Emmanuel Acho go on Fox. Every network, everybody is saying some form or fashion of fraud or whatever. At the end of the day, stats don't lie. When are you clutch? Fourth quarter, third down, Kirk Cousins. 30 for 39, 77% completions. That's first among active quarterbacks right now. First. 7 touchdowns. That's first. His 1 interception. His 130.9 passer rating is first among active quarterbacks. So that's Tom Brady. That's Joe Burrow. That's Justin Herbert. That's Russell Wilson. We know it's better than him. We know that. He got his coach fired. Who else is out there? Tua Tagovailoa, Aaron Rodgers and his ayahuasca. Like, you took ayahuasca, and from what I hear, you should be able to see the future. How do you not know this season's going to turn out the way it's going to turn out after taking ayahuasca? Like, I've heard that you have this journey. So he knew. That's why he didn't show up. After he took the ayahuasca, he knew what the season was going to be like. That's why he didn't show up. That's why the minute the receivers messed up, he's like, already had a vision. I knew they weren't going to be in their playbooks. Get in your playbooks. I knew it. Like, he knew what the season was going to be. And he knows they're going to go out and lose to the Vikings this weekend. Like, he knows that. He knows that. And then he's going to go call his boy Derek Carr, say, hey, man, we should just switch. I need Devontae back. You need to change the scenery. Let me get to Las Vegas. That way Pat McAfee can do his show with me in Vegas. Like, come on now. Peter Bukowski, hey, great job. You're going viral. There's data out there. Or data, whichever one you want. It's out there. You just don't want to look at it.
Well done. Well done, Ron.
You ever done WWE? I think you've got, or I guess it's going to be NWA now, right? I think you've got some mic skills, or AEW.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I like
Hey.
that.
Sign me
Hey,
up.
you've got 4 or 5 jobs already, Ron. Let's add another one on
Yeah.
top of it.
Hey, if
you
Pat
got time,
McAfee
right?
could go on there on wrestling, I could definitely get out there on the wrestling circuit.
Yeah.
Put me out there.
So you foresee a Vikings win over the Packers. How do you think it goes down?
I think this is the thing. Kirk Cousins now understands how important these next 2 games are. Kevin O'Connell understands how important the next 2 games are. The Packers 3-4 defense does give teams trouble. But what do the Vikings do well against gap integrity type of defense? Meaning the 3-4, you have to be very gap sound. And if you're not, there's a lot of creases. I think Dalvin Cook should have a decent day on the ground. But I also think some of the quick passes, because what's going to happen is, and we saw this last time, Jair Alexander, if you put me on Justin Jefferson, we don't have this issue. Well, he's going to find ways to try to find Justin Jefferson, and he's going to overfind it. Like, I think they're all going to overthink trying to stop JJ, and that's going to leave TJ Hawkinson and KJ Osborne open on a lot of plays that Kirk has to mentally get away from, like, JJ needs this record. Don't force it, because KJ and TJ are going to be open. Don't worry about JJ, because you got AJ. That's Adam Thielen, because his middle name is John. So there's a lot of J's in this. JJ, KJ, AJ. I mean, come on now. And so when you
DJ. Yeah.
TJ
And CJ.
DJ, you got CJ and DJ, Dalvin, James, Cook. So hey,
Yes.
it's out there. You got CJ, DJ, TJ, KJ, AJ, and JJ. You can't stop it. It's their day. That's all I'm saying.
It's the Flying Jays.
Hey,
The Flying Jays.
instead of the flying V, the flying J's. They're gonna fly it. For those that don't know sign language, but this is where I go with that. That's what's gonna take to win. They're gonna overthink stopping Justin Jefferson, because we know Jair Alexander has been really emotional. You watch his post game pressers. You watch the post game presser after the Vikings won. You know, he even said it. Him and JJ got into a Twitter battle. Oh, he a little boy. He a little boy. And Justin Jefferson took it personal, as if like I don't understand how somebody call you a little boy makes you want to get on Twitter and say, what, who a little boy? I ain't no little boy. Like, bruh, come on, man. See me in the tunnel. Like, that's where I'd have went with. I'm 6'3", 230 pounds. See me in the tunnel. Call me a little boy to my face and see what happened. After the game, we ain't got refs. And then you tell me if you really think I'm a little boy. Like, come on. But I get it. This is the day and age we're in now, where everything's accessible. Everybody can touch each other on Twitter. But that's what I think requires a win. And then defensively, and this is what this defense has been. Bend but don't break. Bend but don't break. Last week, they only gave up that 33-point whatever. They only gave up 1 touchdown. 1 touchdown in that 33 points the coach scored. That was a punt block. That was errors. That was an interception for a touchdown. That was not all on the defense. That's why I'm so annoyed when I see people bring up the 33 points and not drill down what actually happened. That wasn't the defense. They gave up 1 touchdown. So I love Channing Crowder, and I'm trying to get him on my pod, because we have Ryan Clark on, so we might as well go get the rest of the pivot boys. But you have to understand, it wasn't just Kirk Cousins in the offense. Yes, he didn't put up any points in the first half, but in the in the second half, over 400 yards. It's got to go for something. Like, you can't have one without the other. You can't say, oh, they sucked in the first half, but they were really good in the second half. Like, come on now. Like, look at the Dolphins. 1-7 in 2021, finished 8-7. Now look at the Dolphins. Start off 8-3. They're back to 8-7. So you got to weigh it the same. They were really bad and they became good. They were really good and now they're bad. Like, you can't pick and choose when you want to use metrics. And that's what people are doing. Oh, the Vikings suck 33 to, but yeah, they also put up 400 yards in the second half. There's your data or your data. I don't know, whatever you want, Peter Bukowski. Like, name another team that put up over 400 yards in the second half of a game. I'm pretty sure there's none. Like,
there is.
Is there one other one?
I know. I don't think there is.
Yeah, I think the Vikings are the only team to put up 400 plus yards in a half. So yeah, they had a bad half, but then they had a really good half, a great half, a historic half. Like, come on. Like, the Giants, they got a ring. My dad always told me that. Rest in peace. This is jersey behind me. Some point in the show, I got the helmet over here signed by all the 1978 Steelers. So if you remember those names, some beasts on that helmet. That's a steel curtain helmet behind me. But this is what my dad would always tell me. The Oilers game where they said the guy might have been out of bounds. My dad was covering him. I joked with my dad all my life. Like, dude, he caught that ball. Like, you shouldn't have this ring. But what he said was, things like that have to happen to win championships. The LA Rams game, I think, same thing. Cowboys game, same thing. It was always my dad too. I'm like, dude, what are you doing in the coverage? Like, I forgot if it's Drew Pearson or who runs by. Guy in the back of the end zone, I think Dallas Cowboys, drops the ball. The tight end is wide open, drops the ball. I think they were in cover 4 though, but my dad's the guy running by, so PFF would have said it's his fault. But he drops the ball. Mel Blount tells me this to this day. Hey, look, we might have blown the coverage, but the dude dropped the ball. You need that in order to win championships. So you can say what you want about the Vikings. You can say what you want about the Giants. They needed that helmet catch to win the Super Bowl and beat the 18 and whatever old Patriots. Like, it is what it is, people. Like, you could go back and forth all day, like Peter Bukowski, and talk about data. The data's out there. It's out there. You just don't want to find it because, I mean, I don't know if anybody's seen the Bird Box movie with Sandra Bullock, and she's out there. You know, you can't look, and you got to wear blindfolds because if you see it, you want to kill yourself. Like, that's how Peter Bukowski is. Like, he's Sandra Bullock when it comes to looking for Viking stats. Like, I don't see any Viking stats out here. Where are the Viking stats? Like, that's Peter Bukowski whenever somebody brings up Vikings data. I don't see it. Kirk Cousins, what are you talking about? He's the #1 quarterback in the 4th quarter. I can't see it. Like, come on, man. It's the Bird Box effect for the Packers. That's what they want to do right now.
That's awesome. Braun, do you have anything for Ron?
I don't know what to follow that up with.
Yeah, holy crap.
That was great.
I just think Luke's happy to no longer be the subject
most
of Ron
hated.
Johnson's
I know.
diary.
I am happy
exactly.
that this is pointed at someone else this time.
Hey,
We're all on the same team.
Yeah.
it's like when Iron Man and Captain America finally like buried the hatchet, you know.
And there it is.
I forgot which one. It was when it was like one of the early ones before they became the Avengers, and they were beefing on the deal. And he's like, "Let's go toe to toe." He's like, "You don't want to go toe to toe with me. Put the suit on. Put the suit on." And they're about to fight, and then they blow up the thing, and he's like, "Put the suit on." He's like, "Okay, I know." Like, they're boys now. Like, that's how I feel about Luke Braun. When Peter Bukowski shows up, he's like Loki, you know. So
We have a common enemy.
I love how you refuse to compare him to Thanos.
Oh, he's not
No,
Thanos.
no,
He's
good.
not
Yeah,
Thanos.
he's Loki.
No, yeah,
No.
You
He's
picked the
Loki.
perfect villain for this one.
Yeah.
He's not Thanos. He's the trickeration and hiding and putting fake selves up. No, Thanos is like, no, heck no. He'd never be Thanos. Like, I don't know. You guys don't have kids. Luke does. Sam does. So he might know this, but I don't know if you ever watched like I think it's called like Ladybug. You know, like he's
like
yeah.
Netflix. It's like that really cute
The little cartoon. Yeah, that's what Peter Bukowski is. He's like the villain that takes little butterflies and turns people into other villains. Like, he's like the cute, like, you know, Disney Plus villain. Like, that's what he reminds. He's like the villain to Puss in Boots. You know, like, that's what he reminds me of. Like when Puss in Boots, when he first was trying to be bad, and he was like, and he pulls out his sword, and it's like all so cute, and Shrek's like, oh, look at him. Like, that's Peter Bukowski. He's like little Puss in Boots right before he became, you know, nice. I guess he's definitely not Thanos. Thanos was a G. Thanos would snap his finger and kill half the world. Peter Bukowski won't do that.
That's
Peter Bukowski,
I'm so
like, and
excited.
even if he ever got the glove, like if Peter Bukowski ever got the glove of Thanos to snap his fingers, the only thing he would like wish to disappear were like Kirk Cousins' stats. Because he'd be like, then people would know I'm a fraud. Like, he would snap his fingers and we all be looking like, okay, nothing disappeared. Like, what did he just snap for? And then all of a sudden we go online and we like start Googling stuff and we're like, wait, where'd Kirk Cousins' stats go? Like, where's that 4th quarter comeback? Where's that 130.9 passer rating? Oh, Peter Bukowski snapped his finger. Like, that's all that would disappear.
I'm so excited to post this on Twitter.
This is so good, man.
It reminds me of that stat everybody talked about last year that was like, if you took out the last 2 minutes of halves, the Vikings would have been 15-2.
Right.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like and everybody's like, what? You can't take out the 2 minutes of halves, though. That happened. Like, they did really bad stuff there.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, if you take out 4th quarters, the Vikings would be like 5-13 or whatever. Well,
Yeah.
you can't do that.
13. Luke, can you do math? 5 and 13?
No, I can't.
It's a long season.
I was the fraud the whole time.
It's like an episode of Scooby-Doo. Luke's going to pull off his mask and Peter Bukowski under there.
Arif, you're the one with the mask. Do you have that with you?
Oh, I didn't bring the mask with me. Oh no.
Oh. Well, I don't know how to talk more Vikings after that. Should we talk about Gopher? Your Gophers playing about 2 hours, Ron. How are you going to watch the game?
I invited a bunch of friends over, waiting on this is what I hate about people too, is when you say, hey, we'll host, let us know who's coming so we know how much food to get. Like, people slow roll it as if like I want to run to the store at 12:35. Like, let me know how many bags of chicken I need to get, how many fries we need to take out the freezer. I did go buy 8 pizzas for the buy one, get one. They don't sponsor us, so I can't tell where they are and which pizzas I bought, but I did go get 8 of the BOGOs. So we're gonna throw some pizzas in, we're gonna have some wings, we're gonna have some fries. My daughters, some of their friends are gonna come over, and we're just gonna, hang out in the house and watch the game. And I'm excited. I'm excited. I need the Gophers to win by 10 to 15 points. And this is why, because I feel like if they are up in the fourth quarter by that much, Tanner Morgan will get a chance to hand the ball off a couple times to whether it's Trey Potts, Mo Ibram, whoever. Because I think that's the swan song that people want.
Sure, you don't have money on it? That sounds like about the betting line.
Very specific.
Yeah, that's very specific.
hey, whether I got a parlay out there or not, doesn't matter. I need 10 though.
I hope I see 10. Tanner as well. I hope I also
I'm
see
going to be
Tanner.
cheering for 13-point lead specifically just for you, Ron.
Thank you. I need that. 10 is like, okay, I got it. 13 is comfortable. I can sit back with old fashioned at that point. And just pray for no like bad beat where they like the Gophers like throw an interception at the end of the game that doesn't matter. Like, why would you let Tanner throw the ball? Just take a knee.
You can hear him on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on the Roundtable. He's Ron Johnson at 3. Ron Johnson Roundtable tomorrow. We'll make our Vikings-Packers final predictions. Thanks a lot, Ron.
No, thank you. Enjoyed it. Looking forward to watching Peter Bukowski eat crow. We have a bunch of those up here in Minnesota because US Bank Stadium has killed some birds. So we'll send you some.
It's got a casualty count.
I think this could definitely stir up some Twitter beef. So get ready, Ron. Your mentions are going to explode.
I'm ready.
Well, all right. Ron knows how to answer that by not answering at all, apparently, right? Just leaving Twitter alone.
Take care, Ron.
I should have worn my Avenger shirt today. Oh, man.
Oh, my gosh. That makes me feel bad as a podcaster that's been doing this for years. I'm never going to be that good. That was incredible.
That was incredible.
Wonderful. Man, we spent Peter Bukowski, I guess he's living rent free because he
took up the whole show.
We've spent a good 30 minutes on you, Peter. Man.
Hey, it's promo. It's promo within the Locked On Network too. This is great.
It is.
Go listen to the crossover.
Yes, check it out. Is it Locked On Vikings or Locked On Packers or both? Is it on both?
It's both. Listen to Locked On Vikings, please.
Support Luke Braun.
Yeah, I would say listen to Locked On Packers because if Luke Braun has a worse time, I'm having a better time. It's like quantum entanglement.
Yeah, that tracks.
So I've got 6 categories. Give me your answer. Do it in quick fashion. I want your top moment of the season, rookie of the year, best coaching decision, best GM decision. Let's tee you up for the rookie of the year. We'll start with that. Who is your Vikings rookie of the year?
Man, Greg Joseph's not even a rookie. Ryan Wright. There we go.
Oh, yes, Ryan Wright.
Yeah, wow. I was struggling for a second.
Because he has the body of like a 40-year-old dad. I forget he's a rookie.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. I mean, he got called out on the sideline. I forget which Twitter account did that, but he got absolutely blown up. And Vikings Twitter came to the call and was like, "That's Ryan Wright. You leave him alone."
Yeah.
Probably the biggest cult following relative to his overall status.
Yeah, but not relative to his stature, which is impressive.
Yes.
Right. Status, not stature. I wrote down Asamoah, but I think you're correct. You're right about Wright.
Hey,
I think of draft picks.
Hot. Had a couple
I
games.
think Asamoah. I think Asamoah has taken the lead on Evans.
Yeah. He's gonna make me look like I think I've been wrong on every Vikings drafted rookie so far. So this is fantastic.
It couldn't be clearer to me that Asamoah is different than the other undersized coverage linebackers they've tried in the past. He's different than Surratt. He's different than Dye. Like, this is just a better player.
Well, Surratt was not undersized. He was like 6'4". Like that, we got to keep that in mind too.
What?
He just played undersized.
Yeah, no, he played.
No.
Yeah, okay, we're looking this up right now.
6'3",
He was recruited.
225.
Yeah,
6'3",
he was
225.
recruited as a quarterback for a Power 5 program.
This place
He's not
says
tall.
6'2". I'm seeing 6'2", 6'3" range.
All right, well, we're gonna find the combine measurement for him. How does that sound? That'll settle it
All right. Asamoah is shorter.
easily. Yeah.
He's the same weight, though, 225.
Oh, wow. Okay, so officially listed at 6'3", combine measurement 6'021", so 6'2" and 1/8 of an inch. I gotta say though, he was recruited as a Power 5 quarterback. Wasn't going to be small.
It's so funny. There was a game between Virginia and North Carolina where Christian Darrisaw got Chaz Surratt a couple times, and it went how you think
blew him
that would
out
go.
of the screen, right?
Like off the screen.
And
it's like, man, that's a lineman. Like, he's kind of famous. Maybe that's unfair to Chaz Surratt, and it just wasn't.
It wasn't unfair. It was characteristic.
Yeah,
and
both
the thing
of those
is,
guys.
he almost blew him out of the all 22 screen. Like, the guy is like zooming out to make sure that he has all of Chaz Surratt getting blocked 30 yards downfield. Meanwhile, it's like a run for 8 yards.
Yeah.
Before we continue with our end of the year awards, I do want to tell folks about Built Bar and the great new flavors you can find right now at built.com. Just go to the homepage, built.com. You can find Snickerdoodle Chunk, cookie dough, coconut brownie. You've also got their great new granola flavors as well, all of them featuring 100% real chocolate. These are the world's best protein bars, revolutionizing nutrition. You absolutely have to get them at built.com right now. Do it today. Do it before they're all gone. They won't run out. What am I talking about? They'll never be all gone. There are so many flavors of Built bars to try. Check them out at built.com. Get 15% off. Use the promo code LOCKEDON15. That's promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, so there's Rookie of the Year. We got through that. How about Best Coaching Decision of the Season, KOC, whether that's personnel or a play or a challenge? What do you have?
Don't think there's a challenge in there that I would include. So that one I think is off, unless I'm just misremembering something. I think, okay.
Particularly.
Here's this. Here's the one. The broadcast, and this is recency bias. I'm going to fully admit it. But the broadcast last week told a story during the Giants game of KOC pulling Ed Donatel in, going over the defensive film and saying, "This is how I would beat your defense. Fix this." And that, to me, sounds like a phenomenal coaching decision because guess what Ed Donatel did? He fixed it. So that is my best coaching decision candidacy.
I like that. Luke?
Probably a clock management thing, but
yeah, you were just talking up his clock management.
End of Washington game was really good.
Yes. Yeah. I'll go with that one. The end of the Washington game. I was going to say, just because it's the one that's freshest in my mind, the end of the Giants game, I thought was very interesting.
That was done. Yeah.
If they didn't take this, like they took the sack and it kind of punished them for taking as much time off the clock as they did, but winning on a last second field goal when your opponent has 2 timeouts in their pocket is kind of insane. Using one to ice the kicker at the end, like Zabel didn't use his 2 timeouts and didn't get the ball back. But I think the Washington game's clock management, just giving them, they had like 12 seconds and no timeouts, like a very good way to approach that game and be able to secure that 3-point win.
Quick question about end of Vikings Giants. So if the screen to Jefferson, let's say it gets them to the 46 instead of the 43. So then the field goal is 64. Or maybe it's even a little further back. Maybe it's the 48. Like they're not going to send Joseph out. They have no timeouts. It's 4th down. Do they get up to the line and run a play? Do they try a Hail Mary in hurry up fashion? Or do they let the clock run out? Do they send Joseph out for a hurried 66-yard field goal? How would you approach that?
Personally, I think what they would do, given kind of the history of the way that they play, my assumption is that they would they already had a Hail Mary called and that they would go into that throwing that Hail Mary that they had called 2 plays prior for the drive. It's just, and again, this is the broadcast influencing me because the broadcast mentioned that one thing Adam Thielen liked about the offense is that they keep pressing when they have the advantage and they keep trying to build on their lead. That feels like exactly that kind of decision. I think the last thing they would do was run out the clock. But again, I don't know. Coaching decisions are inscrutable to me.
Best GM decision. Sorry to cut you off, Luke.
No, keep going.
Best GM decision. Hawkinson trade?
That one's a good one. I think signing Za'Darius Smith, I'm going to put just above that. That was a great decision.
Yeah, I think I'm with that. Za'Darius Smith just barely above the Hawkinson trade, but Kwesi has been slam dunking on some personnel decisions. Now we need some of these rookies to come along.
Yeah, those draft day trades are going to look real bad if these rookies don't figure it out.
That is correct. The Hawkinson deal has had such a great impact relative to what they were doing at the tight end position before. But with Za'Darius, if the alternative is a full season of DJ Wanham, it's pretty rough as well. That's pretty rough as well. So I can't fault you there at all. I would go with Hawkinson. How about the top moment of the season in a season full of crazy moments? Number one.
All right, I think from a
for me.
Vikings fan perspective, they're not going to pick the one that I pick, although I don't think they'll hate the one that I pick. It's the Josh Allen fumble in the end zone. That, to me, characterizes the Vikings extremely well, right? Because, yeah, a lot of that has to do with luck, right? This is the conversation we've been having the entire show, that, it is unlikely that a quarterback is going to fumble in their own end zone. But also, how'd they get there? The Vikings put them in that position, right? A great Ryan Wright punt, phenomenal field position for the punt. Great job by the special teams unit to put them in that position. The only reason that they even needed to run a play is because the Vikings had them backed up. So the Vikings put them in a position where luck would help them out. Luck obliged. And to me, that play kind of encapsulates that.
That is also mine. I'm with you.
Going with the same game because that game was insane. But I'm going with the 4th and 18 because I'm going purely on vibes and emotions. That is the play that I like. If I'm like thinking about Vikings things that make me happy, that it's like the first thing that comes to mind. That play is so awesome.
Yeah. So that was the kind of the thing dealing with this award is like, do I pick one that to me feels representative of the Vikings, or do I pick one that is just pure Vikings joy encapsulated? And of course, they come from the same game.
Yeah, I was torn. I think a hardcore, diehard Vikings fan is watching the game, and the Jefferson catch happens. You jump up and down. You say, wow, what a catch. That guy's unbelievable. You see the fumble in the end zone, and you are like speechless because that doesn't happen in pro football. It just doesn't. Like the rarity, the novelty of that is crazy. At least for me, that's how I perceived it. That was such a rare, unexpected event to turn a game on its head. That's why it stood out to me. Jefferson is such a close second. It's by fractional decimal points. All right. Offensive MVP, defensive MVP. Let's get offensive out of the way. Is anyone going to say that Kirk is OMVP over JJ?
Only by like the raw mere definition of value and position. I mean, it's boring to do that. You would always pick a quarterback, so I'm going to go with JJ.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Honorable mention to Darisaw, who has quite an impact on this team.
Great season. That's a great point. Okay, defensive MVP. I think this is actually a toss-up. I think you could go with a few guys.
I'm going to go with Za'Darius. I think Hunter has been playing extremely well. I think that this is so weird. People are now talking about how well Hunter's been playing all season. Luke and I have been on this train since like week 3, right?
He lives in the backfield. It's just like open skinny post every play.
Hunter's been playing really well. I don't think that he's necessarily playing better than Za'Darius Smith, but it is entirely possible that he could have been playing better than Za'Darius Smith, but Za'Darius Smith racks up all the stats. But for a year-end award like this, I think ultimately you want to pick impact, and I think that what Za'Darius Smith has done from an impact perspective is bigger than I think anyone else on the defense. We've seen some great moments from Harrison Smith. We've seen some phenomenal moments from Patrick Peterson. I think Smith has been a little bit more consistent, even if you can't always trust him in the run game, although these last 5 weeks against the run has been pretty good. So I'm going to pick Smith.
Yeah, you could make an argument that like Danielle Hunter has eaten a lot of chips and he's gotten a lot of protection slides and like in a way enabled Za'Darius Smith. But for an award like this, you go to the guy that has had that impact.
Yeah, I mean, the guy who makes the 3rd and 15 happen. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm going off of vibes. I like Patrick Peterson. because
can
his
say that.
season it's a vintage callback to who he used to be at an increasing age, where he repeatedly comes up with game-changing plays in the fourth quarter. Like, he is sort of the salvager of a bad defense in a lot of ways. I think Daniil and Za'Darius are certainly more impactful and consistent, but Patrick Peterson he's reminded me a little bit of like, this may fall flat on you guys. I don't know how big of baseball fans you are. It's like Torrey Hunter second go round with the Twins when he came in and sort of willed them to an unsustainably good season. I think that Patrick Peterson has had a lot of impact on that defense on field and off field.
Actually,
So
I won some money off that Twins team, so I actually know off of Luke, not you, Braun, the other one.
I would never bet on baseball. Wouldn't be caught dead.
I think it was we were recording the previous version of this show. We were at the bar near the office that we were in, and the Twins were down, I think, 2 runs in the 9th, and I made a bet with Luke Inman. I don't know, the Twins have been doing this all season. I bet they're going to win this game. And they did.
That was the last time Arif ever bet on baseball. And the first.
Yeah.
1 for 1.
Batting 1,000, baby.
Speaking of betting, betonline.net, we've got our wagering segment. We started the season with 1,000 mythical dollars. All that matters now is how I do. Because I need max bet.
Oh, God, I've heard of it.
Max bet both weeks. I need to get them all for me to have a chance. I am about 4,000 in the hole. I have to be perfect. So we start the wagering with Luke Inman. He has sent in his picks, and Luke will go with Vikings-Packers over 47.5.
God,
He takes it
took my
off
go-to.
the board. Next
do
up
that.
is Arif. Oh, and he puts 280 on it.
All right. So I'm in second place now, right? Is that correct?
You know, I don't actually have the numbers. You guys are all positive, though, and I am very negative.
Okay, I'm going to start with the assumption that I'm in second place. Obviously, my priority is to not place last, so I'm not going to bet a lot, but the minimum you said is 170, right? It's basically
Correct.
the week number plus times 10. Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to go 270 on the Rams Chargers over.
Oh, what are the odds on that, and what is the over?
Minus 110. The over is 43. Sorry.
Thank you. Braun, you're next.
Boy, did I forget that we were doing this segment.
Boy, did I ever forget.
There are a couple of bets that I think I like a good bit. I am going to place a little bit of faith in Mike White against an ailing Seahawks defense. -1 at -120. I think they might be able to pull that one out, get the Seahawks eliminated, I think, right? If they lose.
I think the Seahawks are gone if they lose, yeah.
I'll put the minimum on it because I don't want Sam catching me.
Yeah, probably not going to happen. So I'm only going. I'm going back to the well. I'm taking the under on Thursday night, which has worked for me every time. Cowboys Titans under 40 -110.
It's a rough under, man.
Don't care.
It's Thursday night.
It's Thursday night. That's
$1,700.
Yeah.
And then I skewed from this last week and it burned me, so I'm going to go back to where I know my heart should be. I'm going to fade Deshaun Watson. I'm going to take the Commanders with Wentz, who can't possibly lose because he's the best quarterback ever, right, Arif? And I'm going to take Commanders -1 at -124.
Wentz isn't even the second best tight end to play quarterback. That's
On
Logan
the
Thomas and
Commanders.
Josh Allen. Yeah, on the Commanders. Yeah. I'm glad Luke knew where I was going with that.
Yep. That's the only other one I can think of.
Well, the other
I
one's
guess
Josh Allen,
it's
right?
Josh
He's
Allen,
basically,
yeah.
Braun.
All right. Well, I know that it's the Broncos and they tend to suck all the air out of games, but it's also the Chiefs who only inflate over-unders. Over-under there is 45. I'm taking the over. Patrick Mahomes over. Always feel good about that. Also, the Denver Broncos are going to have an offensive resurgence because they just fired their head coach, and it's the week after that, and there is some magic to be had there. So over 45, minus 110, Broncos Chiefs.
This is rough. The ones that I had isolated were Vikings, Packers, Broncos, Chiefs, and Browns, Commanders. This is tough.
Wait. Oh yeah, because he took the
because the over-unders were taken. Yeah. Okay. Well, I might as well because I could either take the 49ers minus 10 against the Raiders. That seems kind of fun to me. I don't trust Jarrett Stidham. But I want to have fun. Monday night, Buffalo Bills, Cincinnati Bengals is going to be one of the games of the year. The fact that the Bengals and the Bills get to all of them have played each other. The Chiefs, Bengals, and Bills all have like this fantastic, we're all fighting for the 1 seed type stuff. It's just going to be an exciting game. I already picked an over-under, so I have to pick the winner of this game. I'm going to go, and it's a pick 'em. I'm going to go with the Bills, even though I just wrote an article over at Pro Football Network as to why the Bengals are set to take the top seed in the AFC. Bills are minus 117. I'm going to take that at $200.
Thanks, Arif. That takes Inman's top choice off the board, so he is forced to go with the Patriots. They are, I believe, minus 3, unless that's changed. Minus
last I looked, they were minus 3 against the Bridgewater Dolphins.
At plus 100. Yeah. So he doesn't even have to pay
against
juice.
The money.
And that is going to be $280 for Luke Inman. So those are the picks.
Does he know he's betting against Teddy?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. That's why.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
Oh, I should have gone with Teddy Spreadwater. Oh, well.
Has he been Teddy Spreadwater after the Saints? Because I know with the Vikings he was, with the Saints he was, but since then, I don't know.
I kind of doubt it.
I think he was with Carolina, yes.
Oh, okay.
Only
early on with Carolina, yes.
Yeah. And then
faded late.
He only played 3/4 of a game against us, right? That was all he played for Miami? Or did he play a couple other ones?
Didn't he play for the Broncos? I'm trying to remember all the places he's played.
No, I thought he did, though, this season, Luke.
Did he cover?
I thought... I don't know covering. I thought he played.
Yeah.
Right, because he played all the other times Tua was out. Yeah.
Yeah. Skylar Thompson did like one game and change.
Yeah.
Fun show, gentlemen. Peter Bukowski, you're welcome for the free exposure. Well, you can send that check in the mail anytime. It's the Minnesota Football
Party. That out to Arif, Hasan.
Don't do that, Peter.
Burlington.
Well, no, do that.
Vermont.
Burlington. It'll find me.
Yeah. Thanks, Arif. Thanks, Luke Braun. We'll be back in 2023. Happy New Year to everyone. We'll break down Vikings-Packers next Tuesday, and we will talk to you then on the Minnesota Football Party. So long.